All along my kitchen windowsill, I have various jars filled with water and sometimes potting mix, and also cuttings. These are pieces of plants, stems with leaves, and I'm using them to create new plants for free. And if you look closely, you'll see that many of them have started to grow roots in the water. Now, I know that a lot of people who have houseplants will use this technique to propagate various leafy green houseplants, but I discovered that this can work for a lot of other types of plants too, including herbs and vegetables, quite by accident. I'd taken some rosemary cuttings, actually not even to root, but to have for dinner, and I put them into a glass of water because that's what I tend to do with my veg instead of putting it in the fridge. It keeps it fresher for longer. And I left the rosemary in for quite a bit longer, and then when I looked at it again, I noticed that there were roots forming, and this rosemary has rooted as well. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about my propagation station here, and also chat to you about some of the types of plants that you can propagate this way to create your own plants for free. Let me introduce you to the lineup. We've got Cape gooseberry and a purple sage down here in just potting mixture with vermiculite and perlite. This wonderful plant is a geranium, and I took it as a cutting ages ago, years ago, and the plants that I grew from those cuttings are still outside in a window box, and I'm propagating it again. Then we've got sage, we've got some lavender, we have verbena, there's some rosemary, and tontandine kale. And I have another little tiny baby rosemary that has already started to form roots, and I just have it popped into this as it continues to grow. If you have tons of money, you can go to a garden center or go to nurseries or both and spend money and buy lots and lots of plants every year. You can buy everything you need to kit out a garden or a houseplant collection. But if you want to have a garden and not be wealthy, you start plants off in other ways. And the most common way is with seeds. And even the beginner, even someone who's never gardened before, can understand that concept of sowing seeds, watching them germinate and become new plants. But there are several other ways to create plants, and most of them start with an existing plant that you might have in your garden or that a friend might have. And vegetative propagation means taking a piece of that plant and using it to create a new one. A couple of videos ago, I shared how you can do this through division. And you can take a plant, literally cut it in half or pull it into several pieces, plant them up individually, and then you get lots and lots of plants for free. Another way is to take cuttings, and a lot of plants have the ability to sprout roots and grow independently, so to grow into their own plant. They are clones of that parent plant. And here I have a tontandine kale, and tontandine takes from cuttings very easily. And there are other types of plants that do this as well. Now, last year about this time, I shared a video with you on how to propagate Cape gooseberries using cuttings. And you can see the mixture inside is a pretty standard mixture of potting mix and perlite. And this is what I tend to use when I'm propagating lavender, when I'm propagating rosemary, when I'm propagating Cape gooseberries. It's very, very easy. You can also use other types of material to add drainage, like vermiculite or grit. It's just the idea of making sure that the roots aren't sitting in really wet compost and rotting. But it's so interesting to me to know that you can just stick cuttings in water
and leave them. It's just so easy, and then roots will form and then you can pot them up. It just saves a lot of time and effort. And when I planted up the concrete planter outside recently, the sage that I put in the middle started to flounder. It really started looking ill. I didn't know what was going on. It turned out to be a pest. But by the time I had dug it out and put it in the greenhouse, it was a bit too late. And so what I did instead was I took the healthiest stems and leaves, I took cuttings of them, and I put some of them in water, and I put some of them in potting mix. So I wanted to make sure that I had plants in the future because I knew that that parent plant was not going to make it. And if you look closely, there are roots coming out of the bottom of this potting mix, and there are roots in the water. So it actually works both ways. Although rooting the sage in water took a lot less time. And it's actually quite fun to watch as well, because you can do your dishes or come in and tend every day and look to see if there are any roots. And then when they are, it's just so fun to see. So it's quick. It's quite a fun exercise. It would be great for teaching kids about plants as well. So there are a lot of pros to trying plants out or trying propagating plants out this way. Propagating cuttings in water, so herbs and vegetables, is really new to me, and so I'm experimenting a lot. I know for certain that this works with rosemary. I know that it works with sage. It also works with geraniums. This is a type of geranium, has a waxy leaf, and I can start to see some roots coming out that node. And it works for other things. This is verbena. And one of the side shoots broke off, and so I thought, let's give it a go. So lots and lots of different types of plants will root in water, so it's not just houseplants. I haven't had much luck with the lavender. I don't see any roots forming there, but it could just be that these cuttings are just a little bit too old, because it is getting quite late in the season. So in spring, I'm gonna try this again with some fresh growth. And that is a good point. When you are taking cuttings of any plant, the fresher, the newer, the younger the growth is at the top, the quicker it will root and the more likelihood you'll have of success. If you are interested in trying this out, take cuttings that are 4 to 6 inches long, make sure that there is some fresh growth at the top, cut underneath a leaf node, so that's a little nodule on the stem where leaves are growing out, and then pop it into water, and then place your cuttings in a windowsill that is not south facing. So this is west facing, and it's absolutely perfect. And then make sure that the water doesn't ever evaporate out. And between 2 to 4 weeks later, if the cuttings actually take, you'll start to see some roots forming. And then at that point, you take the cuttings and then you pot them back up into a potting mixture. So something that's free draining, and then put it out in the greenhouse in a cold frame, or keep growing it inside. And yeah, I'm really excited about this because it is quite fun and it looks lovely on the windowsill as well. And as I said before, it is just so easy because you skip that step of having to plant each cutting into potting mixture. So I hope you enjoyed this idea. I've got a couple of other plant propagation videos that you can check out. The Cape gooseberry one, how to propagate lavender, rosemary, and also my most recent video on dividing mint. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Lovely Greens.